Hello, everybody, and indeed, welcome to another edition of Who's Your Hometown Heroes. I'm Tony Val. Today, my guest is Deyman Doolittle. Deyman is co-founder of ShipSigma, an award-winning and evolving success story right here in Indiana. Please now enjoy my conversation with Deyman Doolittle. Who's Your Hometown Heroes is sponsored by Prometheus Consulting. Prometheus is Indy's most trusted name in outsourced IT support. Deyman, thanks so much for joining me today.
Tony, thank you for having me. Honored to be here.
Well, it's my pleasure. Here's where I want to start, Deyman. I thought it would be helpful just if you give an overview of the service that ShipSigma provides. Just give us a little history of your company and what you do.
Sure. So we are a software company that specializes really in cost reduction and visibility around a very particular type of transportation, that is small parcel shipping in the United States. So if you start to think about transportation and how goods move around, you've got a lot of things coming on a container on the slow boat from China, right, over to a port in Los Angeles or New York, and then that stuff gets in an 18-wheeler and ends up at some facility or some a distribution somewhere, and a company then turns that into a product for consumers and ships that out, to everybody that lives, in your neighborhood, my neighborhood, and Amazon, you name it. And those shipments are typically called small parcel, and they are almost entirely done by either the United States Postal Service, FedEx, or UPS. They're just a lot of issues around the data and pricing of those types of shipments. And for an e-commerce company, a lot of times that might be their number 2, 3, or 1 expense. So we've developed a software that allows us to go in and understand the really the profit margins or the profitability of the carrier to, for the shipper, that particular shipper. And then we help them optimize their carrier agreements using that technology so that everybody wins, so that the carrier is still profitable on the business, but they're not overcharging, that our customers are incredibly educated about their pricing now. They're sharing in, better pricing with the carrier. They're going to have longer term relationships. And then, of course, we're typically compensated by results, by how well we can help the shipper save money. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's fascinating and really such a specialized business. It's always interesting to me to see the various, products and services that people end up delivering in their careers. And certainly this is a unique one. Am I correct, Deyman, in guessing that it almost sounds like, in a way, a kind of an easy sale? I assume it's you approach a prospect, and I know you have. It seems like you have a free consultation. You'll go through their data and let them know if you can save them money or not. And I'm kind of thinking, who would say no? Yeah. So how does that process work when you engage with someone?
You're welcome to join my sales team at any time, Tony. No, they believe it or not, it does seem like, and almost everybody, when they first hear the concept, they go, "Well, that sounds amazing. Who in the world tells you no?" But there's an interesting environment in which we sell into, right? And so there's 2 different avenues that we end up meeting our potential customers. One is through the financial avenue, meaning that we're talking to a CFO, VP of finance, or something like that. And the other is that we're talking to somebody in transportation or logistics or something along those lines. The carrier agreement, the reason that we are in business is that these carrier agreements that we negotiate are incredibly complex and convoluted, and just about nobody knows what it means once you boil it down to the real dollars and cents of it, right? So at most companies, there's like a guy or a lady who has been negotiating these carrier agreements against, FedEx or UPS. They negotiate one of these things every 18 months or 3 years or even every year, who knows it. And they're negotiating against a Fortune 50 that's doing this thing 1,000 times a week. And whether they know it or not, they're going through the wood chip, But the carriers are incredible at making the customer feel like they've really knocked it out of the park. So you've got this person, let's call it this VP of logistics. They've just gone through an arduous 9 month negotiation against their carrier. And then the carrier comes back to them, and these reps, the carrier reps, they really are trying to do the best thing they possibly can for their customer. They are going to bat for them up at the home office. So I tell folks, hey man, these guys are fighting harder against UPS or FedEx than they are against you guys. I promise. They want to maintain that relationship. And UPS is telling the rep, or FedEx is telling the rep, or the carrier is telling the rep, hey man, these folks, we're going to lose money on them, but we love the logo and we want to, and your relationship matters. So you go out and get them to sign this agreement. Now you got the rep going to the customer saying, boy, I almost lost my job over getting you this agreement. They did tell me don't look at it again for the next 3 to 5 years. This pricing's amazing. Well, the shipper has nothing to compare that against. So
Yeah.
now they go and they're able to go tell their boss, like, hey, Mr. Owner, hey, board, I took this national carrier to the woodshed. And here we are going, hey, maybe that's not true. Maybe there's an opportunity for another 20, 25, 30% savings out there. And you just need a look from us. But they've already shared, with their uppers that, the work they've done. That's one avenue. The other avenue is we go to the financial person and we say, hey, you know what? There's typically a tremendous opportunity for us to real quick, in about 4 hours of your time, bring 20, 25% savings. And they go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Let me get my logistics guy so we can hear all about it. And the logistic lady goes, no, boss, we got all that covered. I just spent 9 months with them. So there's a lot of ego, and there's just built in, this is how we've always done it. Timmy or Bobby or Sally or Susan over here is our carrier expert, and they know that we've done a great job. And there's a fear of letting us get under the hood and figure out exactly how much opportunity is there. That is, believe it or not, our number one obstacle in helping customers, is them allowing us to help.
I believe it 100%. That doesn't surprise me at all. It's very, it reminds me, Damon, of what we face at Prometheus. So we, off the top of my head, let's say we manage, 200 computer networks around Indianapolis, something like that. And some of our clients have an internal IT person, and that network is their baby, and it's their entire world. That's really all they know in terms of networks. So the fear is Prometheus comes in, and we have all this experience that person can't possibly compete with. So we come in, we know, we can improve the network, we can help you save money, whatever it is, but it's that ego. It sounds like you're dealing with the same thing. That's kind of fascinating. Is there timing involved as well? If they've just signed some sort of contract that locks them in for a while, is it a no-go for you guys, or can you come in anytime?
Yeah, we can actually come in anytime. We've even jumped in the midnight hour where they're already negotiating and been at it for 5 months, and we're able to go, hey guys, you guys have actually saved $50,000 so far, but there's a way we can make that 500. Typically, right after they've just executed an agreement in the first couple of months isn't a great time. But it doesn't mean we can't get engaged and start planning for when we do go back to market. There's you've got these. There is this David and Goliath type of relationship where you've got these, Fortune 50 companies that really have that $100 million e-commerce company believing that they are beholden to the carrier. So, because they have to ship their goods, they don't realize how much power they actually really do have. So the agreements, the vast majority of them are renegotiable at any time. At any time.
Wow.
The term on them is really just about how long will the carrier keep their discounts in force for. But in reality, you can renegotiate these things one day after you execute them, and you should if you've executed a bad agreement.
Mm. Am I understanding that your software, maybe in totally watered down layman's terms, it's going to help your customer understand kind of, is their deal, are their rates competitive or not?
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. I think that if I was going to make it even simpler, one of the analogies that I give people that aren't in the logistics space is I said, imagine because buying a 100 million or a 10 million or $50 million small parcel spend agreement is very similar, believe it or not, to buying a lightly used Lexus. And so you've got somebody else that has all the information, and they're able to share just what's in their best interest to share with the buyer, right? So what our software does, if you take it into like the car buying phase, is it says, all right, here's how much they paid for the Lexus. So now we know what they got. Here's how much what they've incurred on lots expenses for storing the Lexus for the last 73 days. Here's the amount of people that bid on it that they didn't sell it to. Here's how much they have to pay the salesman. Here's how much they need to make to keep the board members of this particular, car lot happy. And then we know definitively what the exact price that they would take for that car that still makes them happy and profitable, but it's the lowest price you could pay for it anywhere else. We do that for parcel for high volume shippers.
Very nice. Very nice. And so, Damon, I want to dig in just a little bit to get a picture for how this works. Again, if let's say I'm an e-commerce company and now I'm curious, right? To me, your sale could be made simply off of curiosity. I would want to know as a business owner, okay, can you guys save me money or not? And this gets to your free analysis. I'm just curious. I'm sure you have to look at the data of that potential client and kind of run their numbers through your system. What does that look like? How much time does it take, and how quickly can someone kind of understand the value you guys are going to bring them?
Well, Tony, I do need to have you on my sales team. I love these questions. We have designed the process to make it incredibly easy to do. So we provide a secure link that allows just about anybody with some type of information about their carrier relationship to supply the information that we need to us in under 5 minutes. Not a joke at all. I mean, we literally collect it all in under 5 minutes. And then really our team within 48 hours can run that through our software. It's tech enabled, if you will. So, we've got the software that tells us about 95% of the story. And then even though then it comes to somebody's hands that typically they're a 20-year veteran of the industry that gets to look at it. And they're also looking at hundreds of agreements out there like today, this week, and knowing, what to tweak or whatever to get it to the, the optimized discount structure. And then we're actually so precise with that when we come back to the customer, we can actually guarantee the results. So we can come back to them and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Shipper, you guys, spend, $5.6 million with XYZ carrier. You've done a great job, but there's $742,000 in rate savings there. We are so comfortable that we can guarantee it. Hire us, and if we don't achieve that, our work is free. I mean, that's how sure we are about what the data tells us is there.
Wow.
So the free analysis, we also know that it doesn't like the free analysis. While it tells our customer what's there, they can't take that and go get it on their. I mean, they have a certain knowledge set that got them to where they're at, and all they can do is go tell the carrier, hey, I talked to ShipSigma and they said there's $700,000 savings. How do I get it? I mean, and obviously the carrier's not going to say, oh, well, this is how. They just say, oh, those guys are crazy.
Right.
There's no savings there. Yeah.
That's great. So again, I mean, to me, I just from any angle, it feels like kind of a no-brainer.
It does. It boils down to the trust and the ego factor. Those are the two things. Is that do they trust that we're telling them is the truth? Because they do have a couple of giant companies and their own previous experience telling them that maybe it's not true because there's not all this money on the table for lack of their efforts. I mean, they are going through these, very hairy, long carrier negotiations that are built to push the process out. Because if you think about it from the carrier's perspective, the longer the negotiation, the better, because they're going to have to concede, and if they can push out their average negotiations from 90 days to 180 days, that's an extra 90 days they get to keep the old rates in place, you know? And so you think about that for every one of those hundreds of thousands of shippers out there, that's a ton of extra revenue. So it's in their best interest that these negotiations are hard, because that way people are like, oh gosh, I don't have the time to do this. This is a beating. I know. The last year we did it. It took 9 months of my life. So it's in their best interest that the negotiations are hard, and it's in their best interest that they're long.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Well, Damon, I want to shift gears a little bit and mention the fact that ShipSigma has made the IBJ Fast 25 list 3 years in a row. So congratulations to you guys. And I'm just curious to hear a little bit about to what do you attribute, your amazing growth? Tell us what your secret is.
Yeah, it's both my co-founder and I are 100 miles an hour all the time, and so part of it is a little bit of a cheesy answer. I will tell you that we just go fast, we work hard, and we bring a lot of enthusiasm into what we do on a daily basis. So from the outside looking in, a tech company that looks at small parcel invoice data sounds incredibly boring. But when you walk into our office, it feels very googly. You know what I mean?
Mm.
There's snacks out. It's an open environment. There's everybody's high fiving on all the wins. There's a level of excitement. There's a culture of excitement, and that excitement is around the growth. We've been incredibly intentional about having that excitement around the growth of the company. We've never been shy about our intentions of being, 10 times the size that we are here today. And it's a part of every employee that we have. They have some sort of growth initiative in part of their job description. It's ingrained in what they're doing. Every new person that we hire, they know that, hey, they might be doing 5 jobs today, but the idea is that they specialize into, 2, 3, then one of those things, and then maybe become a department leader of that whole, of that whole area at some point. So growth is on everybody's mind. We are buoyed a little bit by, the growth of e-commerce and the growth of shipping, and everybody trying to compete with Amazon. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. That's been positive for us, because obviously if everybody wants to compete with Amazon to get their product somewhere in 2 days or 1 day or 3 days, well, obviously that means they need more complex shipping operations. And the more complex the shipping operations are, the more convoluted their carrier agreements get, the more we can help. So, that in turn has helped us out quite a bit. But really, more than anything, it really goes back to that culture of growth, knowing that, there's never been a point to where we stopped and went, oh my gosh, look where we're at today. And I know that for our sanity, we need to do that from time to time. But our eyes are always out 9 months from now, a year from now. What do we want to be doing? We're thinking about initiatives today that we know won't start paying off until 2025, but we know that we have to begin them today in order to benefit from them when we're ready to benefit from them. Of course,
Yes.
it's a double-edged sword, as you know, Tony. It creates a lot of turmoil that needs to be managed within the organization as well. But
Yes.
we accept the turmoil and love the growth.
Yeah, I feel like as a business grows and matures, if you're a leader of that business, your job description can really change over time. It's Denver and I started Prometheus. It was just the two of us 25 years ago. It's hard to imagine how quickly time has flown by. But what we were doing back then is completely and utterly different from how we spend our time today. So that growth and scaling, I think, is it's a it's a never ending puzzle. You know,
It is. It is. I think it takes a certain level of intuitiveness to know, like, as you grow and your duties change over time. And going back to what you said about growing too, I think you grow as a leader too. So you're growing along with the business. You have to, because there's new challenges that you face as the company grows. Different types of challenges, and we all are born with our certain talents and gifts, but some of it is education, and you have to go find the answer to these new things because I don't care, but how you're born. You're not born knowing accounting best practices, right? Or whatever it might be. So you grow as a leader too. One of the biggest challenges is that it's your baby, as you know. So Chase and I started. It was just the two of us, and it's like you love it like a newborn baby, and it's hard to let other people do things that you were doing. And a lot of times, you have to delegate something that that person you're delegating it to is only going to be able to do it 85% as good as you were able to do.
yes,
And you do that, but you have to still let it go, and you have to go, okay, I can go. My time is better spent somewhere else than getting this from 85 to 100. Letting this person do it, and then also understanding when somebody is doing it at 100, it's just different than your 100. You know what I mean? So they're doing it perfect. It's not the way you would do it, but they're doing it perfect, and you need to walk away and let it go. It's really hard to not step back into those little areas. I mean, there was a time that I used to send every single invoice that we ever sent out to a customer.
I
I
remember
think
those
both of
days.
my co-founder and I have done that. And so I'll see an invoice go out every once in a while from our accounting department. I go, oh, I would have worded it this way. And and then you got to draw a line. Go, okay, when do I write an email that says, hey, I wish we would have worded that invoice this way, or go, okay, you know what, he does that because he's a CPA and he's a VP of finance and he's been in finance for 15 years, so that's how he words the email, and that's probably right. So I need to step away and just let it go out that way.
Absolutely. Especially this time of year, I think about people like Roger Penske. There's a guy who I guess is maybe the closest thing to perfection that I can imagine. Yet the level of delegation he has had to do, maybe that's his secret sauce. Maybe he's found a way to put the right people in the right seats and delegate and just trust that these guys aren't me, but they're pretty darn good.
Yeah, yeah. Right people, right seats. We actually talk about that all the time. Having the right people in the right seats. We see ourselves as I mentioned earlier. The main catalyst for our growth is the people that we have, right, and culture that we built around those people. It's you know there's the added challenge when you're growing is that those seats change and the right people change all the time. And so sometimes you got the right people and you go, okay, how do we make sure this person grows with it because I love them as a brother or a sister and they're going to be a part of this organization. As those seats change and evolve, and the seat that they were incredible at doesn't exist anymore. Now it's three people's seats and they do this and that. And so we need to find a home or a new role. And we're not about creating roles to fit the person. Where the roles are to make the business do what the business needs to do to grow. But that's something that's constantly on our mind, is making sure that all of our people are in the right seats to succeed. Because as we win because they're winning, so we got to put them in a spot to win.
There you go. I see it very much as akin to being an NFL general manager. You know, you're building a team and you're swapping out players, and you're gonna lose some to injury. Some of them are going to be career ending. I think about the Colts. It's fascinating to see that a lot of the old players are still on the sidelines these days. I think Robert Mathis is helping the line. Reggie Wayne is
Yeah.
helping the receivers. It's really, really interesting the way they're able to use people. Of course, I hope that it translates into a Super Bowl win here one of these days soon.
Yeah. I usually get a little bit of like a queasy feeling. I hate it when people compare like the business to a family, and they say, I mean, I understand where it comes from, and they're like, oh, we're a family, and it's not that way. But we are tight. We are super tight because we have some common shared goals and objectives, and we're all going in the same direction. We all understand what the other one brings to the table. It is family like, and so I understand where people draw
Yeah.
that analogy. But I think there's something addicting to that as well, to where that even when you're not, the person doing the thing, you still from the sidelines want to understand what's going on and be a part of it. We actually have folks that, we don't have 50 executive spots on our team. We're a growing company. We've got
Mhm.
4 or 5 spots on the executive leadership team, and we do have people that we hire in at amazing talent levels, and we know that they're going to be with us for a couple of years, and then they're going to want something else, and that's okay. We want them to go achieve that something else. Those folks still come back to us, and they want to have lunch. They want to come into the office. They want to see what's going on. It does create that kind of the family bond. Even though I said I don't like, but it creates an energy around what we're doing that is slightly addictive.
Yes, I think energy is the main message I'm getting from you today, Damon. And Denver warned me, not in a good way, not a bad way. He said Damon would be a great interview. He's a ball of energy, super passionate about what he does, and I have certainly found that to be true. You know, I always like talking to other Indiana business owners, and with my last question, Damon, I'll ask you. What do you like about owning a business and raising a family in Central Indiana?
Oh my gosh. Well, I will tell you a side note is that before I ever ended up here, I moved here through a prior career, and I had some choices in where I could have gone in the country. And we had let me see, probably like a 2 year old and a 5 month old. And maybe my wife was pregnant still. I'm not sure, but I know that we were weighing our options, and we had some warmer 4 season options. We had some beach situations out there, but it just so happened that I read a couple of articles. One of them called Carmel, Indiana, one of the best places to raise a family in America, and the other one was like a Disney article that mentioned Columbus, Indiana, being one of the best small towns to live in America. And it was just enough to get us to come up here and visit Indiana from Dallas and say, okay, let's take a look and see what it has to offer. Now, I do tell folks that we showed up and it was false advertising. It was June. And so it was just absolutely gorgeous. There was flowers on the trees. Everything was green. And it was about 80 degrees, and everybody kept apologizing for the heat, And meanwhile, I just left Dallas where everything was, turning brown, and it was like 100 degrees. And no one was apologizing about the heat. We fell in love with the June weather, but immediately after moving up here, within probably I'd say 2 or 3 months, we had nearly as many friends in our neighborhoods up here as we actually had from living in Dallas for several years. There is there's a tighter knit community feel, and I don't know if it's the Midwest thing that people talk about, but I can tell you. We met everyone that was our age or within 10 years either way, probably in our neighborhood within the first couple of months. And, how they do here in Indiana, everybody hangs out in their garage. You start meeting folks. There's an incredible, there's a more of a tight knit community vibe here. And we absolutely love it. I know all of my parents' kids' friends. My daughter was actually an offender bender on the way to school the other day. Of course, I knew the parent of the person that hit her. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things that was almost expected from where we live here. And that, I believe, carries over into the business side. I think that kind of thing allows for a closer knit community within your work as well, because it's the norm that we have in our personal lives.
100%.
On top of that, Indiana itself, just in Indianapolis, it's probably like the perfect size of a city. You got everything that you ever want from a downtown, feel, from the zoo to the professional sports teams to beautiful, world-class restaurants and hotels and convention center, all those things. And then, you could be where I live. I live 25 minutes from the airport, 25 minutes from downtown, and my neighbor has 600 acres with cows on it. So
Yeah.
you've really got a great mix of everything that's really close to you. We absolutely love it as a place to do business and to live.
100%. That's fabulous. I'm a transplant from the Chicago area, moved here in 2000, and I just haven't looked back. I've fell in love with Central Indiana. It's been a great move. Well, Damon, congratulations on the Ship Sigma success. It's been awesome having you on the show. Great to get to know you a little bit. And one of these days, I'd love to hear an update. Let's see how much your growth has done somewhere in the future here. I'm sure we'll all be amazed.
Tony, thank you very much for having me. It was an absolute blast.